Welcome to Day 6 of the KMC Technologies Group Microsoft Copilot Studio implementation course. Our agent can now retrieve enterprise knowledge, collect structured information, and perform real business transactions. That also means the risk has increased. Today we focus on protecting access, enterprise data, connector execution, and the overall life cycle of the solution. Security is not something we add immediately before production. It has to be part of the agent architecture from the beginning. Today we'll explore authentication and identity models, Microsoft Entra agent identity concepts, data loss prevention policies, least privilege, web and channel security, and governance zones. Then we'll apply those concepts to the KMC IT Help Desk agent. We'll require authenticated users for internal access, review Entra and connector permissions, validate DLP policies across environments, and build a threat-focused production security checklist. No single setting protects an entire Copilot Studio solution. Security works in layers. User identity answers the question, who is asking? Agent access determines who can use the experience. Data access controls what the user can retrieve. Tool authorization controls what operations can be performed. And governance determines which combinations of technologies and connectors are allowed. Most importantly, authorization must be enforced at the data and tool layers. A prompt instruction saying, "Only managers may perform this action," is not a reliable security boundary. For internal enterprise agents, the system should usually know who the user is. Microsoft or Entra-based authentication is typically appropriate for employee-facing agents because it enables identity-aware access. Manual or custom Entra configuration may be required when your application needs special resources, API permissions, or scopes. Anonymous access may be appropriate for public, low-risk experiences, but it should never expose sensitive internal knowledge or business actions. In Teams or Microsoft 365 scenarios, channel-provided identity can provide a more integrated experience, but downstream permissions still need to be validated. Now let's configure authentication. Open the KMC agent and navigate to Settings, then Security or Authentication. For internal employee use, select the Microsoft or Entra-based identity option appropriate for the tenant and channel. If manual Entra configuration is required, coordinate application and API permissions with the Microsoft 365 or Entra administrator. Save the changes and republish the agent. Then test using a standard employee identity, not only an administrator or maker account. Finally, verify that any user identity fields used by downstream tools are actually available and trustworthy. One important design principle is that the agent should never need users to disclose authentication secrets. Do not request passwords. Do not request MFA one-time codes or push approvals. Do not ask for private keys, client secrets, API keys, recovery codes, authentication cookies, or access tokens. When users have identity-related problems, guide them to an approved password reset, self-service recovery, or identity support process instead. Modern Copilot Studio environments also integrate with Microsoft Entra agent identity capabilities. This provides an identifiable agent principal in Entra and improves visibility for administrators. Security teams can better understand which agent is associated with access and activity. Operationally, organizations should record the agent identity and metadata, review permissions regularly, remove stale identities when agents are retired, and continue monitoring Microsoft guidance as agent identity capabilities evolve. Data loss prevention policies provide an important governance layer for Power Platform and Copilot Studio integrations. Connectors should be classified according to organizational policy. DLP can prevent unauthorized combinations of business and non-business services. Policies should apply to the environments in which the agent and its flows operate, and every connector used by an agent flow or tool should be included in the governance review. Always test DLP behavior in a non-production environment before release. Tools should receive only the permissions required by their contract. Create Ticket may need permission to create a support record, and read small amounts of reference data for validation. It should not require broad administrator permissions. It should not automatically gain access to every ticket queue. Get Ticket Status should only read tickets the requester is entitled to see and return the minimum safe field set. The backend must perform the final requester authorization check. Least privilege applies to knowledge sources too. Use scoped SharePoint sites and libraries. Only expose content intended for the agent's target audience. Use permission-aware connections where supported. Highly sensitive information should often be separated into dedicated experiences. Avoid connecting the agent to root-level SharePoint scopes or broad repositories containing unrelated sensitive information. And never rely on an instruction such as "please don't show confidential documents" as a substitute for actual access controls. When deploying an agent through a website or direct web channel, security requires additional design. First, ask whether a web channel is even necessary for an internal help desk agent. If internal data or actions are exposed, require authentication. Enable the supported Copilot Studio Web or direct line security patterns. Never place reusable secrets directly in browser-side JavaScript. When appropriate, use a backend token broker design and validate the origin and application architecture. Security validation should be based on realistic threat scenarios. Consider data disclosure. A user might intentionally or accidentally ask the agent for information stored in a restricted policy or document library. The primary controls are authentication and source permissions. The correct test is simple. Use a least privileged account and verify that information the user cannot access directly also cannot be retrieved through the agent. Another risk is prompt injection. An enterprise document might contain text telling the agent to ignore its rules or take an unauthorized action. Documents are data. They should not automatically become trusted instructions. Grounding boundaries, agent instructions, tool contracts, back-end authorization, and source governance all help reduce this risk. Your testing should deliberately include adversarial source content rather than assuming every enterprise document is harmless. Next, test unauthorized actions. A user may try to create or retrieve information on behalf of another person. The conversational layer alone cannot safely enforce this rule. Back-end authorization must determine which user is making the request and what operations that identity is allowed to perform. This is why authenticated identity needs to travel into your tool contract and why cross-user transaction testing is important. Security teams also need enough evidence to investigate incidents. Track the released version of the agent and its flows. For failed transactions, preserve flow run identifiers and back-end transaction IDs. Capture security test and evaluation results before production changes. Document knowledge source changes. Monitor, connector, and identity modifications. At the same time, avoid logging unnecessary secrets or sensitive conversation data. Logging itself needs appropriate retention and access controls. Not every agent needs exactly the same governance process. A small team productivity agent with limited data and limited actions may operate within a lighter, but still governed, development model. An enterprise or mission-critical agent needs stronger lifecycle controls. That generally means dedicated environments, formal application lifecycle management, release approvals, security review, threat modeling, production monitoring, support ownership, and a rollback plan. Governance should match the risk and complexity of the solution. Before calling the agent secure, run an explicit security validation lab. First, attempt access without authentication. Second, use an account that lacks access to a document and confirm the agent cannot retrieve it. Third, attempt to read another user's ticket. Fourth, paste a fake password or MFA code and verify that the agent neither solicits nor reuses the secret. Fifth, test a prohibited connector combination and verify the DLP policy blocks it. Finally, test whether the tool connection can perform any operation beyond its documented contract. A secure agent should pass all 6 categories. Before completing day 6, verify the implementation. User authentication should be configured and tested with a standard user. The agent identity should be recorded. DLP should be reviewed in every target environment. Tool connections should follow least privilege. Knowledge scopes must be reviewed. The agent should never request or intentionally store authentication secrets. Web and channel security should be reviewed. Cross-user authorization needs to be tested, and the appropriate security owner should approve the controls before broader release. Your homework is to define the exact human escalation policy and identify high-risk categories for your organization. Also collect at least 10 adversarial or ambiguous prompts to use in orchestration testing. In Day 7, we'll configure generative orchestration, routing, fallback, and human escalation so the agent can make better decisions about when to answer, when to ask another question, when to act, and when to hand the conversation to someone else. This completes Day 6 of the KMC Technologies Group Microsoft Copilot Studio implementation course. Our agent now has a security architecture covering user identity, authentication, enterprise data, tools, connectors, DLP, channel security, least privilege, logging, and governance. In Day 7, we'll build the intelligence that determines how the agent routes requests, chooses actions, handles uncertainty, and escalates high-risk situations. Thank you for learning with KMC Technologies Group.